Welcome to Lopinot, a community in North Trinidad, considered one of the most remarkable historic villages in the country. Before 1806, this would have been an undisturbed natural space, but anthropogenic disturbance to facilitate commercial agriculture and later the creation of residential and tourism opportunities transformed the land into what it is today. The journey to Lopinot begins in busy Aruca. A drive into the northern range along a winding road cuts through dense forest until 9.5 kilometers later the scenic village appears. The composition of the Lopinot village landscape is defined by the distinguishable spatially heterogeneous elements of forests, agricultural land, and human settlement features like homes, a school, churches, a cemetery, and the Lopinot Historical Complex, which is the focal point. The configuration is characterized by the arrangement and context of these elements. This landscape demonstrates a clear patch-matrix corridor relationship. This small agricultural area is distinctly different in structure and function than the surrounding landscape and represents a patch. The track around the recreation ground and the road create linear patches having specific enhanced functions due to their linear shape. They act as corridors or buffers for transfers within the landscape. And the ground within which the patches, corridors, and buffers exist is the matrix. The pattern across the landscape has developed through a connection of many related factors. Lopinot Village developed within specific environmental constraints. It is nested at an elevation of approximately 400 meters within a valley in the northern range. Natural vegetation is deciduous seasonal forest influenced by tropical marine climatic conditions, altitude, and aspect. Like any other ecosystem, it provides a habitat for a variety of organisms. As part of the northern range, there's a diversity of birds, large and small mammals, and reptiles. Whereas the road forms a link throughout the landscape, it also acts as a barrier or filter to the free movement of fauna. In the area surrounding the historical complex, very little movement of animals is observed. This edge habitat actually increases mortality and decreases productivity among some species. The ecosystem typically maintains itself by cycling energy and nutrients through biogeochemical processes, namely the carbon, phosphorus, and nitrogen cycles, as well as the hydrological cycle. However, increased human presence and activity influences these cycles. For example, the removal of trees for agricultural and residential purposes reduces carbon sequestration, and human activities alter the water cycle. Microclimates exist where the atmospheric conditions differ from the surrounding area. This is observed in patches like at the river and in the nearby caves. Metamorphic rocks of micaceous schists and phyllites of the Mayaro and Maracas formations are present within the valley. Soils formed by these rocks over time and under these climatic conditions are suitable for cocoa cultivation. This caused the initial land use change in the 1800s to a cocoa plantation where large contiguous tracts of habitat were broken up and native species replaced with non-native taxa. Today, crops suitable for the soil and topography, like Christophine, tomatoes, and citrus, are cultivated along the slopes and sold to site visitors and at external markets like the nearby Aruca and Tinapuna, and even at the capital, Port of Spain. Cocoa is still grown on a small scale, and there has been initiatives over the years to revive the industry. The Lopinot River functions as a freshwater habitat and recreation for locals and visitors alike. It is a tributary of the Western Peninsula Caroni watershed, linking it to a wider landscape through the exchange of water, aquatic species, nutrients, materials, energy, and human elements like solid waste and agricultural effluents. The riparian zone also provides important wildlife migration corridors, linking fragmented forests across the landscape. These corridors are wide enough to provide positive benefits for wildlife. The river also recharges the Northern Gravels Aquifer, which provides a reservoir for local domestic and agricultural use. Human conversion of the natural landscape at Lopinot has been delimited by environmental constraints. Population density is low due to the altitude and general inaccessibility of the area. However, the role of people on the functional changes in the village is an important one. The original community clustered around the old cocoa plantation house, which is now the historical site. It is a focal point in the landscape, with the cocoa house, jail, and plantation house used as museums. This rich history, paired with the natural heritage, attracts both local and international visitors, and the site was even featured in the Sci-Fi Channel's Ghost Hunters International. This movement of people affects the flow of materials and energy in and out of the community. Heritage tourism and ecotourism promote the exchange of ideas, information, cultures, and norms between visitors and residents. It also contributes to national and community identity. However, increased human presence and activity influences biogeochemical processes, especially the carbon cycle. Solid waste management, habitat disturbances, water and noise pollution have also become increasing problems. Because of growing tourist activities and the preference of young persons to work outside of the village, large-scale farming has declined across the landscape. Therefore, areas in Lopinot that were once under cultivation are either reverting to a more natural ecological condition or used for residential purposes. People can promote the aesthetic value of the environment and be key to environmental preservation and protection. In 2011, there were attempts by external entities to purchase a piece of land for quarrying purposes within the valley. Residents recognized the adverse effects this would have on their overall well-being. So, through the Lopinot Environmental Action Foundation and Lopinot Village Council, they were able to stop this proposal with a court order. This shows that land use managers and planners at all levels are critically important players in the conservation process, and the principles of landscape ecology provide guidance to many of the decisions they must make. But more can be done within the valley. Ecological monitoring is necessary to measure the rate and extent of human conversion of terrestrial habitats. It is a means to determine if planning, regulatory or conservation programs and policies to control human disturbance is needed, and if it is practiced, does it work? Lopinot Village remains a part of Trinidad and Tobago that blossoms with natural and almost undisturbed beauty. Nave expressed that landscapes ought to be dealt with in their totality as physical, ecological, and geographical entities, integrating all natural and human-caused patterns and processes. This is the approach that must be taken in the management of the Lopinot landscape to strike a balance between the slow but inevitable human development and ecological preservation.